sheet
What sign-in sheet?
at the front door that, have you had COVID, have you been tested for COVID?
Well, no one was there, so I didn't do it. All right. Call to order at 7:02 PM. Kat, can you take the roll, please?
I can.
What?
How are you? Brian Boyle.
Present.
Lee Doobie.
Here.
Kim Farah.
Here.
Barbara Kishka. Sorry. Sheila Luz.
Jen,
Yeah.
stop.
I know. Sarah Muckamore. Here. Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Kristen Savage.
Here.
Jennifer Silva.
Here.
Dr. Cochran.
Here.
And Jenna Horan.
Here.
All right, all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to the approval of the minutes from November 5th, regular business meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Sean makes the motion, Sheila seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Is there anybody here? One, two,
I'm going to do a roll call for old time's sake.
three, 6, 7,
Barbara's not there.
7, 8, 0. Moving on to the November 10th special meeting, motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion to approve the special meeting minutes of November 10th.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Oh, Lee makes a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Sean?
I'm going to be abstaining.
Okay. 7. All opposed? Abstained? 1.
Myself and Sean.
2.
2. Sorry, it's 602 Kat, sorry.
Who else is abstaining?
Kristen?
Sorry, Kat.
Just can't see you over there.
All right.
I'll wait
Anyone
below
for
the table.
delegates and
My
individuals?
boss.
No, yes, I thought so. That's why I asked.
Good evening. Coral Hampy, Danville, TTA President. I hope you are all well. I wish everyone in our communities were in good health, but the reality is numbers are on the rise all around us. The schools have done a good job of protecting us. We follow the CDC guidelines, hand wash and sanitize, clean our desks and chairs, wear our masks. We must insist, though, that we stay at 6-foot distancing. 3 feet is just too close. We also thank our community members for helping to keep the numbers lower in our towns. While going back to the old normal will never happen, we should strive to at least keep this best option going. I believe there are 2 parts to this. One part is keeping the number of people in the schools to what we have currently. Now is not the time to be planning to return more students back to school. With the approach of winter and flu season and HVAC systems that do not work to the CDC guidelines, we can't risk putting students and staff at more risk. As it is, there are parents removing their children daily to be remote because they do not feel that it will stay this safe. The second part seems contradictory, but I believe that not being in school for the holiday time will help prevent the possible spread of COVID-19. The state and CDC have said it is not safe to travel for the holidays. But let's face it, many families will travel whether they are told not to or not. The safest course of action would be to not bring together all those foreign germs. Let's consider the 2-week quarantine time after the December vacation a chance for all of us to keep our numbers in our community low so we can return to the hybrid mode mid-January. I know it seems like we are casting away our family and friends, but the needs of the many should outweigh the wants of the few. While in this pandemic, hybrid is the best instructional model we can have. Staff love to see as many students as we can, so please, Let's work together and make the best reasonable choices that can keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak for delegates and individuals? Okay, moving on. Jenna, do you have a update for us?
Yes, thank you so much. At the Sandown TLC, the principal told me that since there's no cohort or hybrid model, the biggest effect on students, which is unlike the other schools, isn't the shifting between cohort models, but it's the constant changing for students and their siblings. I've also heard from teachers there that everyone is very excited for Thanksgiving this year. At Sandown North, they had their first fifth grade host of Monday morning meeting, which, although it's now remote, it's still a very important part of their school culture. First graders and their teachers are thrilled to be back 4 days in school at Sandown North. At Danville Elementary School, they acknowledged dozens of kindness rock stars, as they called them, who came to school in amazing costumes as a part of their Kindness Spirit Week. Other fun days included sports gear, Danville school colors, pajama day, and Peace, Love, and Kindness Day, where everyone dressed up as hippies. Pollard School, they had a fifth grader, Olivia Triani, who has become part of the New Hampshire Kid Executive Council, a seat that she's worked very hard for, and everyone is very proud of her for making that. At Atkinson Academy, morning announcements have recently been discussing the CARES Enrichment Program, which stands for Challenge, Acceptance, Responsibility, Empathy, and Self-Control. This kindness-centered group stands for things that I believe we all could be reminded of. At the middle school, 8th grader Cameron Lizier Mahoney felt inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement over the summer that began to find books for elementary schools that promote kindness, inclusivity, and acceptance. She collected more than 350 books to deliver to each town's elementary schools. Every school that has received these gifts is very thankful for not only her hard work, but the messages of these books. As for the high school, Project Hope has begun its sweatshirt fundraiser and its 5K fundraiser for an incredible cause. Fall sports concluded, and many kids got to have banquets to celebrate their athletic achievements. The Sustainable Timberlane, a new club starting at school, once asked me to promote the new club and ask anyone who wants to join their wonderful new club that's off to an amazing start. Over the last couple of days, I have reached out to dozens of my peer as well as middle school and elementary students just to kind of check in on them in a more personal way than just putting an Instagram poll out there saying, "How are you feeling?" I've had real conversations with a lot of people. Overall, kids are very pleased with the way that the COVID response has been in school, but a lot of them do echo what Mrs. Hampy just said, that they don't feel safe going back 4 days in school. Of course, I do not speak for every student in saying this because I know that there are a lot of students that wish we could just snap our fingers and go back to the way things were in 2019, but that's simply not the case right now. Another big thing that I've heard is that students don't really feel connected to their peers anymore, and I've heard that from elementary school and middle schoolers, as well as high schoolers, that they don't turn their cameras on in class anymore because they don't feel like they have a connection to any of their classmates. And I've heard from teachers a lot, like, it's so sad to see all of these black screens pop up, but I think that we really need a full community change to make students feel included like they once did when they had tons of extracurricular activities and friends in all of their classes instead of just 4 to 5 kids in a class. I have a lot of people I know that only have themselves and a teacher in their classroom when they're in person. I honestly don't have a suggestion as to how to fix this problem of not feeling like a real community, but I feel like I just want to speak for the students in saying that a full community change from you, the school board, from parents, from teachers, and from students themselves, it really needs to happen for anything to be successful, or else kids' mental health will continue to decline, suicide rates will continue to rise as they have during the pandemic, especially in people my age, and I just really think that it would be beneficial for full community change to happen for everyone to feel more included. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to current business, board members in your packet, and I did talk to the SLT before the meeting, you'll find an executive summary, so I'm just going to briefly, mainly for the public's information, comment on some of the highlights here. And Jenna, to speak to your point about moving towards a 4-day model and concerns that have been risen, we do have an update here on the dashboard, and clearly everybody who's been watching any sort of news knows that cases are on the rise across the country. While we have no intention to move to a remote model at this time after the holidays, it is being recommended to us that we remain in the hybrid cohort model through January 15th. That will be approximately 2 weeks after the Christmas holiday, and you could almost consider that like a 2-week quarantine, even though we'd be hybrid at that point. So the only exception to that would be grade 2, where there's a recommendation that the grade 2 goes back in at 4 days a week, starting at the end of at the beginning of the new trimester on December 7th. When they go back, those students from, and Mrs. Kanotis, correct me if I'm wrong, the minimum spacing that we're going to see is 5 feet between students. We're not moving down to 3 feet. And in most cases, we're at 6 feet, spacing between those students. There's only a few cases. And parents, if you've got concerns, the district principals will have all this information. And as we move towards hopefully going to a 4-day model, after the middle of January, there'll be information put out as to what this means in terms of spacing for your students at the elementary level. So that's, the plan right now is to remain hybrid until such time as we can move forward, with the exception of grade 2. And they will move into a 4-day model as soon as the first trimester ends. Any questions on that summary or any comments that people, additions, Dr. Cochran?
Just a little bit of local context, if I could. It's from conversations at last Friday's South Central Superintendent's meeting. And conversations, and spent a lot of time on COVID, and schools were talking about the situations they had. And most schools and districts are seeing the same sort of pattern that we are with respect to COVID-19. Most schools and districts are successfully following safety rules with little or no documented spread through school-based contact. When exposure occurs, it's typically students or employees who have been contracted COVID in the home or the community and then expose others in the schools, thus resulting in quarantine rates. And our quarantine rates are up to some extent as well, and we've seen that. But our situation is actually pretty typical of South Central and much of the state. The other thing is the School Administrators Association put a survey out for districts asking about whether or not they made a determination about going fully remote for the holiday period. When it closed on the 15th, Friday the 13th, I think it was, 50 districts had responded. Of that, 75% had made a determination, the other 25 had not. 78 of the districts who had made a determination were going to remain in their current instructional model, and 22% were moving from the current instructional model to fully remote for the time period that we just discussed. So we're pretty typical of, in a lot of ways, of what's happening around us.
Okay, thank you. Jenna?
Just to clarify, say that in mid-January we begin the phased 4-day. Will we still continue with the original model that was supposed to be in December, where we do elementary school, then middle school, and then high school? Going 4 days a week?
I think that's really going to, go ahead, Mrs. Allaire, but I think it's really dependent on what the metrics, I mean, we'll be, in essence, the term I should have used was reevaluating in mid-January, not moving towards that, and I'm sorry, I should have, that was the wrong way to, we want to, they're recommending that we reevaluate in mid-January.
And we'll also be monitoring COVID numbers all the way through. So at any point in time, if we feel that the numbers warrant it, we could put a school or schools or the entire district into a fully remote mode if we needed it to tamp down the spread. And that would apply specifically and especially if we're seeing school-based spread. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify for people listening at home.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I'm gonna
Jenna,
call-
unfortunately, when you read the same document enough, you forget what you haven't said in it. So thank you for pointing that out.
Can I just point something out too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Cochran, but if parents or students are very nervous, if they chose hybrid and they're in the 2 days right now, and they're nervous and wishing we would go remote and kind of, they're upset because we're not going remote, they do have the option of those kids to stay home, correct? Like I mean, if they're in hybrid,
We
You following
just,
where
we just surveyed, and, yeah, go ahead.
So I think that there is a difference between elementary
I'm
and
sorry,
secondary.
yes, yeah.
If parents are feeling that way, we would prefer they call us now, because as you'll see in the numbers, and although those numbers in your packet are the in-person numbers,
Yep.
if we have a huge influx, we will need to then rearrange teachers. So we don't have one teacher at every grade level in every school who
So-
teaches remote at the elementary level. So we need to make the arrangements for class instructors
Okay.
so that that's able to happen.
I guess in my comment, I really should have prefaced it, was more the middle school and high school
Okay, yep.
have that ability, and I guess, and Mark's going to take this one over.
Yes, that is correct. So at the middle school and the high school, all the classes, as we've designed since day one, students are enrolled in the classes they were enrolled in. And so teachers are teaching in both the to remote students and in-person students at the same time, potentially. And so if a student did choose, that were in the hybrid model, chose to go fully remote, they stay in the class that they're enrolled in, and they simply just access those classes remotely.
We did see generally a shift when we put the survey out towards more people moving from remote to hybrid than we did from hybrid to remote. And in general, the concerns that we received were, will the district model moving forward for the next, time period be hybrid or, back 4 days a week? And people were saying, I'm very comfortable now having seen it with my child being in hybrid. I'm not quite sure about the 4 days back. So I think there will be a significant number of people who will be a little easier
Okay.
after hearing the plan between now and Martin Luther King Day.
And I just didn't want people who, you see a lot of comments and you hear comments, and I think Jenna will back me up on this, that there are some kids or parents that are nervous about sending their middle school and high schoolers now, feeling we should be remote, and yet the district isn't choosing to go remote. But those people do have the option to keep their kids home, or for the students to stay home if they don't feel safe. So they're not forced to come. So people that are saying we need to close down, we need to go remote, if you feel that way, you can just keep your child home during this period. But again, it's reevaluated constantly, and we could choose, that could be a decision any day. But for the time being, there is that option. That's all.
Okay, any other questions on this topic before we move on? Okay, moving on to a facilities update. You'll see there's an executive summary. The bid went out for the Sandown North roof. We awarded the bid to Lane Roofing for $194,400. As you recall, the board voted to approve up to $200,000 for the two roofs. Clearly, that is not going to do the Danville roof. The Danville roof came in at $112,000 up to $120,000. And so we're either going to need to approve more funding for this roof through the budget, or hold on this roof until we have a little bit better idea of where we stand with the HVAC. My recommendation is that we hold on this roof. It does not need to be done, within the next 2 months, and that we take a look at the next item on the agenda, which is the HVAC. The HVAC proposal was rewritten by our consultant and then sent out. It was supposed to be due this coming Friday. There was a request, I think, to ask for an extension till next Wednesday, correct? So this RFP is open till next Wednesday. We hope to get some bids in, and this RFP will calculate all the air changes for 481 rooms in the district. They're going to assess all the air handling units and return units and provide recommendations for replacement. That's going to be used to inform the capital improvement plan and the facilities management plan as we move into the budget season, so that we will have an idea of where the money is going to be going from the current year's operating budget and also the proposed budget to HVAC systems. And then we'll also have a better idea of where we should be putting the Danville roof, either in this current fiscal year or the next fiscal year. So are there any questions on that?
Jen?
Jen?
I just don't remember what's the condition of the Sandown roof versus the Danville roof, and why would we do one
My
over the other?
understanding is the Sandown roof is in much worse condition than the Danville roof. The Danville roof does not have to be done
Okay.
immediately, but the Sandown roof is in such shape that it needs to be done like today.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you looking for a motion to just do the Sandown roof, or do we?
No, we already approved up to $200,000, so this bid has already gone out and been approved. So we're not looking for that, it's just that we can't do both roofs with that. Because we were trying to get this done, I pretty much said I'd go ahead with the Sandown roof, and the board is gonna have to reconsider, so
Okay.
they're gonna move forward with Sandown. The next item on the agenda is extracurricular activities. This is on the agenda because it seems there's discussion about when extracurricular activities stop or when they go. So my understanding is if the district is remote, that all activities become remote, correct?
Dr. Garvin's talking about-
That's my understanding based on the conversation back in the fall.
The conversation back in the fall was if we, no, that's not the, the conversation in the fall was if we were hybrid, even if we were remote but with the intent to go hybrid. So if we were always in that intent to go and be hybrid, even if we were remote, the activities would continue. If we started remote and we had the activities continuing because it was the intent to go hybrid in that period. So it was my understanding that so long as we were remote, or in that intent to be hybrid, but if we had to go remote for a
Short period of
health
time.
concern, COVID health concerns, not because maybe the HVAC system went or we had a staffing issue, but a actual COVID health concern, then clearly all activities would get postponed. But I don't think you can just in general say if we're remote, activities get postponed, because we could go remote for a variety of reasons that have nothing to do with the continuance of activities.
Well,
Yes,
my understanding is if we are remote for any COVID-related issue, then all activities should move to remote activities.
COVID health-related
No,
issues.
COVID-related issues.
I would agree with that, except for if the reason that we are going remote is due to staffing issues only,
Yes.
then I don't think the children should be punished and with the sports, because they would be able to go to school, it's just that we don't have teachers to accompany and support that.
Or any of their activities.
Right, so if we have, example, like Manchester, if we have a majority of our teachers say they're going to go and travel outside of New England, and they have to come back and quarantine for 14 days, so we have to close the school for 14 days, those students in whatever activity,
Yes,
if
I
their
would-
supervisor is present and able to be there and be part of it, and those, why should those kids or that activity be suspended because part of our staff went out?
I agree with that rationale. I think it's consistent with our safety requirements and consistent with the intent. Extra and co-curriculars are not everything, but they are important, and if we can do them and do them safely, then I think we should do so. But if school is not in for COVID reasons, either at the school
Right.
or at
The
the district
community.
level, then I think all extracurriculars that cannot be done remote should be ceased during that time period.
Agreed.
That would, I would agree with, yes.
And that's, and it follows with what Jenna was saying too, that as it is, the students are feeling the lack of community, and as much as we can keep
Yeah.
that community and that extracurricular, that's important to them.
Sheila?
I'm obviously going to disagree because we've had this conversation before. I disagree wholeheartedly. My feelings are if the kids aren't in the school to be educated, then if we're shutting down remote, And I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't care if it's a staffing situation. I don't care if it's, we could have a stomach bug go through this place and have half the staff out and have to close down. I disagree with the premise of this. And I think what's happening here is we're making but if. We're making a big gray area here so that everybody can have their cake and eat it too. And I disagree with that. If the buildings are closed, everything is closed. Everything stops. Everything goes remote. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry, but I cannot see opening these buildings when you can't have kids in here to be taught. It's just, I'm sorry, and I understand, and I'm going to listen to punishing the kids. I'm trying to, my first priority, and, this is me speaking as myself, is the education of these children. My second priority is to keep them safe at the same time. And I don't believe you can have a double standard of not being able to have them in the building, especially during a winter season when everything has to be inside, but yet we can have extracurriculars. I'm sorry, I don't agree with it.
I think everyone's first priority is the education of the kids. I think second,
Well-
it's the best interest of the kids. And then I come down to, again, if we have to close the buildings, I mean, you said safety is the second interest, and I 100% agree, that if the kids are, or it's a safety issue, if numbers are high in our community or our school, clearly, you close down the sports or activities or whatever else is there, just as we did in the fall season. When there was a potential of a spread on a team, that team got stopped. Or if we went to a school, or we're going to play a school or something, and they had an issue, that game got canceled. So there was always, the safety was always there through the fall. I think the superintendent, the administrators, and the athletic director were quite on top of all of that. But if you're closing the building because, again, the HVAC system goes, or 50 teachers can't be here, that's not a safety issue on the kids. So for any reason for the activity, if you have to close the building because the teachers have to quarantine for whatever reason, that's not a safety issue on the kids. So why would you stop their extracurricular activities? And I want to make clear, we're talking about all activities here, not just
We're
sports
talking
or
as
whatever.
We certainly
We're
are.
talking about-
Jen?
So-
Unfortunately, I think we are operating in a huge world of what-ifs. And everybody's concerned about education, about mental health, about safety. I mean, it's all what-ifs. What if a coach is forced to quarantine, then that particular sport won't practice that day? What if a club advisor is sick, then that particular club won't be meeting that day? So there's always what-ifs about when activities will be canceled or when they'll be run. We also have activities that happen outside of this building, and what if that facility is shut down? Then those students will not be able to participate in that activity, but it shouldn't shut down everything else. So it is a lot of what-ifs, and I think we do need to consider all the factors and provide as much as we can safely to all of our students in all of their activities.
Dr. Cochran, let Dr. Cochran wanted to add in, and then I'll.
Yeah, the Bing was Athletic Director Fantasia, who points out that there are a number of districts that are remote, fully remote, have been and continue to be, and they are participating in sports and have committed to sports for the winter.
You have the opposite too, that have kids in the school, but they stop their athletics. We've got both ends of the spectrum
True.
on that.
Can I hear from the other down there, Brian, then Sarah?
I'm sorry.
No,
Sarah.
Brian, you raised your hand first.
Okay, thanks. Well, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Cochran, but haven't we addressed the situation about staffing? So the issue is no longer staffing. Why we're not, if we can go hybrid, we have the staffing to go hybrid. Is that correct?
We have been able to successfully pull this off by the good graces of a lot of teachers and paras and staff who have volunteered to cover things and work on their prep periods. And while they are getting some stipended money for that, if it weren't for the pandemic floaters, if it weren't for paras who are volunteering to cover a class because there's a remote teacher, if it weren't for teachers who are giving up their prep time and having to do their prep completely at home instead of during the day, we would be in serious trouble. So we're about where we were. Staffing is still an issue. If we have a rampant flu bug, we could have to shut a school or schools down. Are we better? Yes. Have we brought in more people? Yes. Do we have more substitutes? Yes. But I would argue that at any given day, if you had an atypical number of subs needed, we would be having to pile a bunch of kids in the biggest rooms that we have and have them sit there basically supervised but not learning. Is
Okay.
that?
Okay, well, thank you for that. So basically, I guess I'm along the same lines as Sheila. So if you have legit COVID issues and we are unable to open up the buildings to educate the students, I have no idea, we can't even begin to understand the rationale why you'd be participating in outside activities.
I don't think anybody's arguing
Nobody
that.
said that. There's legit COVID issues, clearly you close down. And if a team or a group or an organization has a COVID issue, they'll do their tracing, their contact tracing, and shut that down as well. So you might have certain activities that get shut down while others don't. You have activities that got shut down while school didn't. I mean, the school, that's what I'm saying, the administration is doing the right thing and knowing when to close things down and when not to. I mean, they know when to quarantine students and when not to. We're not closing down entire schools because of one student or staff or a certain group of quarantining. We're isolating that group. And I don't know really why we're even going down this. I understand why we did it in the fall, but we only did it in the fall for sports because our athletic director told us that the NHIA needed a vote from the board. At this point, I think our administration's been doing the job, and I think we basically hand it back to them and say, do your job and make the decisions that need to be made. When when it's a safety issue for the students, you shut it down. If it's not a safety issue for the students, if we have 50 teachers that end up at a barbecue and something happens and they all have to be quarantined, it's not fair to tell student council or the band or Project Hope, you can't have your thing because those 50 teachers over there screwed up and now you can't be here. Or those 50 students over there screwed up, so now you can't. I mean, if it's not affecting the group as a whole, it shouldn't affect every activity.
Sarah?
Thank you. I'd just like to say I agree with Jen. We're in a world of what ifs right now, and to try to speculate what the cause of any one shift in our educational model is going to be, whether it's, kids who are gathering, whether it's, pointing the finger at teachers and staff and staffing levels, at this point just seems very premature. And to, kind of reiterate what Kristen was just saying, our administrators are following and watching all of these different situations as they pop up. And, yes, our focus has to be on the education and the health and the safety of our students and our staff. But to say now and that any one specific thing or any one specific situation is going to cause our kids and our students and our teachers to no longer be able to run and participate in extracurricular activities just seems very premature to me. And we should allow our administrators to continue to make those decisions as they see fit and what is best for our students and what our staff and our educators can do for them, do for our community, to ensure that our community continues to thrive. As long as it's safe. Like, safety has always been a priority. We've heard that a number of times from the staff in the union that has come up and spoken to us. Safety is always a priority. The education of our students is always a priority. But I don't believe that it is our role to kind of say, if this, then nothing. It doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you. Sheila?
Dr. Farrar, I came here prepared to make a motion, but you know what? I'm not going to make that motion,
Okay.
okay? And I'm going to explain why. I think the public watching this has seen everybody's feelings on this. Everybody pretty much has spoken to what they feel should be right or wrong. I'm going to speak directly to when we were going remote and had a championship football game that was still going to continue, and all the emails that I received of people and parents who are absolutely livid that their kids couldn't go into school that day, even, you know, before it changed, but yet the game was still going to continue. So just to put out there to parents, as you heard this board, where they stood on it. So just to let everybody know where the emails either way should be going. But, you know, I agreed with a lot of those parents that they couldn't get their kids into the school, but yet a football game was still happening. So I'm going to let it go with that.
Okay. And go ahead, Jenna.
Whether or not we make a decision tonight, I would just like to advocate that the communication is very clear whenever a decision is made, because I, like you, have gotten a lot of emails from students and, you know, text messages from students asking, am I going to be able to play my senior basketball season, my senior hockey season? And I keep saying to them, I really don't know. Watch the meetings. I will give you updates if you don't watch the meetings. But a lot of the time it's just pure confusion because they don't have a clear answer as to whether or not they're going to be in school and playing sports or if everything's going to be canceled. So whether or not you make that motion or anyone makes a motion tonight, just clear communication is key for the sanity of all of us.
Unfortunately, Jenna, I think you realize how divided this board is on this
Definitely.
particular issue.
Lee, then Jen.
Yeah, you know, in the fall, my position was if the building shut down, everything shuts down. That's changed because we're all seeing it, and it's just seeing a dramatic change in these kids. They're disconnected in so many ways, and we just need to do everything in our power to keep every opportunity to get them engaged open. The school buildings, the athletic field, the extracurricular activities. You know, if we have to shut down buildings, then we need to reassess everything else. But we need to keep as many avenues and channels to keep these kids engaged. They're changing, and it's so disturbing.
Okay, thank you. Jen?
Jenna, I just want to speak to all of the students out there that are, and parents that I've heard from as well. I hear from a lot of parents and a lot of students asking exactly what you're saying. Am I going to have my club? Am I going to have my sport? Am I going to have my activity? And you're right, the big answer is nobody knows. Everybody is trying the best that they can to offer an education, a well-rounded education that includes every activity, sport, extracurricular possible that we can safely do. But the one big thing that's completely out of our hands and is a big unknown is how is COVID going to impact that? And everybody needs to be prepared that at any time, one day you could be, planning for whatever, and then the next day find out that's not happening. And that did happen to some of our sports teams, literally on the field, ready to play, and another team shows up and turns around and leaves again. So I wish we had an answer for what's going to happen with everything, and the best we can say is we'll communicate any changes that we can as quickly as we can, but things do change quickly.
Okay, so let's move on. The next item on the agenda is a SPED consultant update. Dr. Cochran, I know we had communication about this earlier.
We have been working with Jane Bergeron, who is currently the Executive Director of the Special Education Administrators Association, and she has been assisting us with some external things, advice. We've had one meeting that was on the actual review and implementation, but most of our consult since then has actually been spent on working with our SPED administrators and building administrators to give them technical advice around special education, and that has been timely and greatly appreciated. We may need more technical advice, and if so, we would be looking for a potential consult with another individual who would be in more. Jane was mostly remote, and we may need some more on-site presence to look at some of our practices and procedures, and also assist our new SPED administrators with insights and decisions about particular cases. Typically, those are out-of-district placements, compliance issues, procedural issues, things like that. So I would be looking to have the board approve a second special education consult in the amount of $10,000 for a certified special educator. Typically, Jane has a pool of people who have recently retired and who would be available to consult with us at a given rate. And so it would be authority for me to contract with someone for the purpose of supporting our special education administrators and case managers as we move forward to try and address some of the special education issues that we're having, and help us evaluate those procedures and also make sure that we're compliant.
Okay, so is there any discussion? So the superintendent is looking for a motion to employ a second special ed consultant in the amount of up to $10,000 to assist us with special education.
There are also some situations, sorry, I forgot this piece. There are also some situations that, because of Jane's position, she cannot get involved in. So this person would not be bound as the director, as the executive director of the Special Ed Administrators Association. So this consultant not being in that position would have a greater breadth of things that could be addressed.
I'll make that motion.
Is that enough money? Is $10,000 enough money?
Well,
I believe so.
okay, so Sean, are you making the motion?
I'll
And Kristen
second it.
seconds the motion to engage another consultant up to $10,000. Jen?
Is this, I know with the spring shutdown and the summer, and probably, I'm guessing, even into the fall, special ed has been greatly impacted. Is this to help us try and figure out the best path forward to meet all those needs, or just in general?
I would, Jen, I fully support this motion, and I think we will be going into a non-public later, and I think that will answer some of your questions.
Okay.
I would add that we could publicly say that this is due to a lack of work bodies to address our special ed needs.
Well, we were short-staffed in special education. We just hired three senior people because we had quite a few people leave. So yes, you could certainly say that because of staff departures that this kind of pushed us a little bit behind the eight ball, and the difficulties of special
Vacancies.
education during the COVID transition has been challenging, even if you were fully staffed. So
Our new people, our 3 new administrators have been flat out since day one, putting in long hours. I've been getting 9 o'clock emails on a Friday night with SPED questions, and so they've been doing great work, and it's partly out of the conversations that I've had with building administration and those administrators, and also Sandy, Mark, and Lucy, that we really feel we need to make this motion at this point in time.
That just rolls off your tongue so quick now, Sandy, Mark, and Lucy. It's like one word, one name. It's like they're,
It's just so much talent all in
I
one
know,
place.
it's
that
just
It's
the
just
way
like a unit.
your acronyms for them, when we get emails and everything, it's just, you
When are
guys
you
are
gonna
just one.
when are you gonna incorporate Mark into that long
It's
sentence?
just,
All right, so I'm going to call the question on employing a consultant for up to $10,000 to assist with special education. All in favor? 8-0. Thank you. Moving on, the next item on here is budget development. So in your package, you have two budgets. You have a proposed budget, and we also have the first look at the default budget. For those that don't have these, if you're at home, the proposed budget right now stands at 76,226. The default budget stands at 76,267. I think a lot of this discussion on budget development will probably need to move into a non-public session because it will probably involve personnel. In regards to personnel, I'm going to be looking for a motion, and Mr. Dowd, correct me if I'm wrong on what I'm looking for, but I'm looking for a motion to incorporate the new SAU salary lines and any ancillary expenses into the proposed budget for 21-22.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So moved.
I'm looking to, I don't know, incorporate the new, all SAU salary lines and any ancillary expenses associated with the SAU into the proposed operating budget. Specifically the salary lines, because those have to be added and deleted, but we might as well throw in the others for good measure. So Sheila made the motion, somebody seconded.
I'll second it. Or just somebody.
I have Lee seconded.
All right, there you go.
Is there any discussion on this
Yeah,
motion? Sean?
Just as for an accounting purposes though, Jeff, is there a way that we can, at least I know I would like to see it incorporated into the one line, but basically be also able to see that, oh yeah, that went on up due to the SAU coming in, or that was reduced because of the SAU, you know?
We did send that out over the week. I sent that out to everybody over the weekend. I asked Jeff to do that, to split it, the two budgets. I don't think it's in this pack.
Yeah, it's in this one.
It's in this one too. Yeah, we asked it to kind of see the SAU so it didn't get rolled into the budget.
Because when you see an increase in one line, it's due to last year's, and then you're gonna have, you know, the normal increases and stuff like that, and now you're gonna have this additional component of being an SAU, and then if it gets all lumped into one, it just becomes one big part, and then you just gotta ask a bunch of questions to get to
I
your-
understand what but Sean, now if you look at this, you'll see this cover sheet has changed substantially since the last time. When you look at this, and I'm looking at the proposed, the operating budget draft tracking, okay? When you come down and you'll see that 2.9 million increase, right above there, you'll see SAU withdrawal is a savings of $255,000. So after all those salaries have been put in and we pull everything else out, the SAU is, we're down $255,000 essentially on the SAU line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
if
So,
that's-
but it reads a lot differently than the last time we looked at it, where we had salaries from the SAUs showing as an increase. They were an increase in the salary line, but they were really a decrease in the SAU line. So I think Mr. Down and Maria and I worked on this, so it makes it a little clearer for the board. So we're down $250,000 in the SAU with the withdrawal, is essentially where we are. SAU. Now, what's driving the budget up here is, and I talked to Mr. Dowd about this week, is the employee contribution rates have increased, and just in teacher retirement, we're up 1.13. For the board members that aren't aware, these come out every 2 years. So this increase from 11.17 up to 14.06. We will not see another increase next year other than the incremental increase as teachers' pay rates go up. So we should not see like another 1.1 million jump next year in the budget due to these increases.
Are you gonna tie the state legislature's hands with that comment?
It's already out. No, it's a two-year thing. They've already put it out for next year, right? Jeff?
That's correct, yeah,
Yeah.
two-year segments.
It's a 2-year cycle.
I would never underestimate
How
it.
high does that, I don't know, it's just, this is, it's crazy to me.
So,
So they're gonna do this percentage until we get to 100% on the backs of local towns?
It might even go bigger than that.
Is that- I mean, is that the goal for
You're
the
trying
state, I
to-
wonder?
You're trying to backfill all the funds so that they can make the payments that they have on this.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And if you ever look at the history of it,
I know.
way back, people weren't putting in, and they were actually contributing less than what Social Security was. So it's bad, I don't want to get on a diatribe of that, but you can make a whole case that the unions at the time accepting that was not sound rationale, but everybody loved it because there was less money to ever going in. It's just ridiculous.
I know, Kim, we talked a little bit about it and went back and forth, but just for the public to hear, because when you hear, 76 million, it is a lot of money, but, and these documents are all on the website for people to see, but, 774,000 or 744, that was what was voted on for salary increases for our 2 union groups, right?
correct.
So, that's, the residents of the 4 towns voted on that, and well-deserved increases for sure, but that's not something that we would touch. Insurance increase $478,000. FICA increase $59,000. The teacher retirement, $1.1 million that we can't do anything with. Non-teacher retirement, $223,000. Special ed tuition, again, which we are required by law to provide, $350,000. So it adds up.
It adds up, but to say that we can't do anything about this as a board, I think is an incorrect statement.
But some of those things are some of those increases are out of our hands, like the $1.13 million. We don't have control over that.
Well, in some sense, we do, yes, we do.
Well, that's by the staff, though.
It's staffing.
I mean, the number right here is the employer rate, which is what we were going to pay for a teacher to the retirement system, has gone up from 11.17% to 14.06%.
Huge.
That's what translates into the 1.113 million that's been increased.
Yeah.
And the state will be here 2 years from now, and you'll see it go from 14.06 to it'll probably be 17 point something. It just keeps going up and up, and I see it going beyond 100 someday. God.
Dr. Cochran?
I just wanted to confirm that while I'm not an expert on the history of the system, based on people whose opinions and experience I have great faith in, his characterization of the situation being mistakes and missteps on all sides has been consistently accurate. So his description of the issues being on multiple sides at multiple points in time is exactly what other people who have been very close to this in the superintendent circle have described it to me.
Yeah, and what happens is that all the districts now are all fixing up the Band-Aids of previous people that were in charge of all these things, unfortunately.
Okay, Sheila?
Jeff, who has not been to the budget committee yet? Because I've been missing some budget committee meetings, obviously.
I think everyone's been there.
Everybody's been there?
I should say that I think all departments have been there. I believe all departments have been there.
All departments have been in?
Yep.
Okay. Because I'm going to have to go back and watch on a few of these. Thank you.
All right. Any more discussion about the budget? All right, moving on. Excuse me? Oh, on the motion on the... Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we voted on that. So I'm going to call the question on the, to include the SAU salaries and any ancillary expenses associated with the SAU into both the proposed and the default budget. All in favor? 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kat, for keeping me on
Sorry,
track.
Kat.
All right, the next item on the agenda is policies. Jen, are you taking this? Lee, Jen, who's?
Well, which one are you doing? Are you going to do the second read? Because I'll make a motion.
I'm turning it over to Jen. Do you want to take over for policy, or?
Second read, I wasn't there when policy committee did these, but we're at second read. I don't know if anybody has any questions or if we're ready to adopt those three, the BEA, BEAB, and BEC.
So we're going to look for a motion to accept BEA, BEAB, and BEC as a second read.
I'll make the motion, second it.
Sean makes a motion, Sheila seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? 8-0. Then the next is first read for these policies, BEDB.
BEDB, agenda preparation and dissemination. We just removed the part about suitable time for remarks of the public. That was already addressed in a previous policy about school board meetings. It was included in that BEA. So it just seemed repetitive to have that in there. BEDC. There was a portion struck out and replaced all this language in red were recommendations from NHSBA, I believe, about, it just called out more the situation that we're finding ourselves in, participating electronically or from a remote location. And then BEDD, rules of order. This, New Hampshire School Board Association had a few different versions of this that were all very lengthy, verbose, and felt as though just cumbersome and would be a lot of stumbling blocks for any board. That's really, the intent is to conduct business. So we left the policy as it was, but did feel that there was one portion that they had outlined about general principles that really does apply to everything that we do here. That meeting rules should facilitate rather than inhibit the board's deliberation and decision-making process, along with the other 5 down there.
Okay, are there any questions on these? Can we seek a motion to accept a first read on BEDB, BEDC, BEDD?
So moved.
Kristen makes a motion, Sheila seconds. All in favor? Thank you. Passes 8-0. Jen, with regards to policy, I think we need to, I'm not sure what's on your agenda, but we need to ensure that we are now looking at the SAU policies to make sure they're all somehow, the SAU 55 policies somehow get incorporated into our policies so that it can be done by July 1. I don't know. There's probably, I don't know if that's, is that like a ton of, I don't know.
Well, I think there's a lot of overlap.
I think there is.
So
yeah.
I'm hoping that it's not that many policies. I will find somebody to pass the torch to come March.
Well, yeah, and it's, I think we need somebody to pass that torch to.
Yeah, I can take a look and see what overlaps, because I suspect that a lot of the SAU policies that overlap are very, very old and outdated, and the ones that we have are current, especially like the ones that we're talking about right here.
Right.
You know,
right.
Running the meetings, agenda preparation, things like that. So hopefully we can just cross out a lot of them.
Yeah. I just want to make sure there's nothing we miss that is clearly one that we need. Brian?
Yeah, while you're talking about policies, I was wondering if one of our illustrious board members here can address at the next policy meeting this attendance for school board committees requiring 2 board members to be there. that could be addressed.
Talking, reduce that number?
Reduce it to 1, so that way they're not,
I
feel
don't
like
know
we
if that's
just ha-
defined.
I feel like we just went through this policy, but I can look.
Yeah, I think,
We
We
did that
did.
recently.
yeah.
I mean, I go back and forth on it. I sometimes think it's a hassle, but on the other hand, I don't really feel that we should only have one board member at a meeting like that, so.
I
It's not
agree,
the-
but just so the meeting doesn't get prevented from being held. That's my thoughts. That's-
Yeah, I don't know could the meeting still be held, but no action could be taken? I don't know.
There's no action that actually happens until this board ratifies it through its second read process. So this board is always the final arbiter of anything that
that's
comes
not-
out of policy.
That's on the policy, Sean. I think what Brian's getting at is,
Just in general.
in general, those committees being able to conduct any business, right? So we may,
Oh, no, I totally agree. I mean, I know we have it in there, is that if we don't have two school board
Yeah.
members that are present, the meeting is basically adjourned. Some of these committee meetings are meeting during the day.
Do we still have it like that?
Yeah, the safety committee was one
Yeah.
that came
No,
out
but is
last
the
week.
policy still that way?
I believe it is. I know, I'm almost certain we reviewed it, it's either this season or last season, and I thought there was something about it with RSA.
All right, so maybe Jen, you can take a look at that one and see what we can do with it.
But as far as the SAU's policies, though, I think we're going to have to, I would recommend that we at least talk to legal in regards to, what I would fear is that come July 1st, we don't have policies in place for SAU-type matters, and therefore, under Timberline only, we don't have we have this whole blanket of area that we don't even have policies to address.
We'll
That's
get
why
it
I'm
taken
asking
care of,
Jen to
Sean.
look at them. Now.
Yeah, no.
It'll be good.
And then, no, I see what you're saying, Sean, we've got to make sure that we have those, and yes, we'll run them by legal, but I'm confident, Jen's the policy guru now, and Lee, that if you look at, I mean, some of them are going to be clearly, we don't need duplication, some of them might be, we need to figure out what that needs to do in our policies, and actually, it's probably more, the New Hampshire School Board Association was probably the one that could take a look at those and tell us, more so than even legal, which ones we need to, we may want to go to them for advice on those
But
policies.
what I'm trying to get at is that I'm being more pessimistic and thinking that that would not get done by the time of July 1 come around, so.
Oh, yes, it will.
That's why I'm,
And
that's
it's
why.
not, no, it's not on our side, but if we had like the New Hampshire School Board is the one that's overlooking it, getting us advice. I mean, it's taken us 2.5 years now to get.
I know, but what I'm saying, I'm asking Jen now, November 19th, start looking at it, so it's done by July 1.
Okay.
That's my point now. We don't want to wait. You're right. We don't want to wait till July 1 and find out we're in trouble. And I agree, New Hampshire School Board, we don't want to just send them to them and say, can you look at these? I think we need to do the groundwork and then figure out what questions we need to ask. No, I agree with you. We can't be left without required policies. Did they ever come back? Didn't we send the SAU policies to?
Yes, we did.
The SAU?
Yes, there was supposed to be a committee.
Sue Sherman did that.
No, but we sent them
that's
to
right.
New Hampshire School Board, didn't we?
Yeah.
Sue Sherman did for SAU 55.
Those should be done by now.
Well,
Somebody should
ours are
check.
not, ours are
Who's-
not done.
Huh?
Ours are not done,
Oh, really?
really. So,
Wow. And SAU 55 was in
and we have
after
not
ours.
paid for them either, so.
Oh, okay. All right, so,
Can't complain then.
okay. So Jen, I think policy committee needs to make those a priority unless there are some other mandated ones.
There are,
Contact.
the priority list is this long,
I know, but
of like,
But perhaps you should
These are-
contact the New Hampshire School Board Association and remind them of our situation, and that we sent those
Yeah.
policies up, and we really need them to look at them
I'll look at them
ASAP,
because I think
we
a
need
lot
to
of them,
work on
I think a lot of them overlap, but we
Yeah.
do have, I think, Dr. Cochran, that list is,
If you can CC me on that, I can follow up with Attorney Phillips.
yeah.
Because if they can just bump us to the top of the, I mean, we have a unique situation, so it's not like we're just asking them to review them.
There's not
As
that
we
many
continue.
SAU policies.
Huh?
There's not that many SAU policies.
I know, but
No,
that's what
no.
I'm saying, if we just remind them we have a unique situation, and perhaps they can,
I think it's only gonna, I think it'll only be I think a lot of them overlap, and we already have them.
Okay,
But I'll look at it.
yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, I just think we need to, Sean's right, we should make them a priority. We don't want to be left hanging on those. Okay, warrant articles. you've got the list of proposed warrant articles. One of the things, there was an energy committee meeting, I don't know what's today, Thursday, it must have been yesterday. And one of the warrant articles, and I did send something to the SAU today about this, and I know Maria knows about this because she was there in the energy committee. We are looking, now that we spent all these money on roofs, we have nice roofs, we're looking at potentially trying to get some solar panels on some of our roofs. But in order to do that, most of the time, districts don't buy their own panels. They have investors that really invest to buy the panels, and then it doesn't cost the district anything, but we're essentially leasing the space for reduced electric rates or whatever. I'm not explaining this too well. But in order to do that, and Sean, I know you know this from the town, we have got to put a warrant article on that authorizes the board to engage in this sort of activity so that we can lease the space so that we can get solar panels on. So I'm going to be trying to work on, and Barbara Kitska is taking the lead on this to get that sort of warrant put on to the warrant articles moving forward. Other than that, I mean, we are still in union negotiations, but we do have 4 bargaining units that could potentially have 8 different warrants would have to go on for those units. Because typically each bargaining unit has a warrant, and then there's another warrant saying if that warrant doesn't pass, that it authorizes the district to hold a special meeting to reconsider that unit. So since those are all 4 separate, I would anticipate we'd have 4 separate warrants, or two warrants for each unit, total of 8 possibly. So if there are any other warrants that people are interested in here, let me know. Last year, Brian, get off your phone. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Last year, we had a warrant on for roofs, right? So we might want to put something in for a capital warrant to see if the voters would fund that beyond the operating budget. I mean, I do realize economically people are struggling now, so I'm not really sure that we would want to do that, but we may want to take a look at that. So that's where we are on warrants. Any other discussion on that? Okay. Dr. Cochran, did you have anything like retirements or anything, personnel, administrator or personnel report? No?
Nope.
All is good? Committee reports, we had energy committee yesterday. Barbara's not here. As I said, we talked about the solar panels. Another thing that we talked about are, there's a company, and we'll probably end up looking at other companies, but we had a company come speak to us about potentially some revenue sharing. Oh, that's right. You were on your phone because you wanted to tell me about that. Yes, thank you. Potential revenue sharing where we're such a large electric user, and what happens is in the summer when it gets to be 95 degrees, there's a big load on the grid. And power companies don't want to have to build a whole new power plant when there's 2 days in the summer that they can't meet demand. So what they do is go out to large energy producers, and they work through these companies, you're metered, and they ask you to reduce your load. You know, like just shut all your ACs off or something for a period of a couple hours. And then we get a portion of that revenue from the company that interfaces with the utility. And so there's no upfront cost to us. There's a cost of about $2,500 to meter the buildings. And this would only work for the middle and high school. They did look at the elementary schools are too small. They're not interested in, little buildings. They're interested in big energy consumers. And so they would take that portion out of our revenue. It's not, based on what we saw, it's not a huge amount of revenue. It might be $10,000, $15,000 a year, but it's something. And it's certainly good for the environment too. So that's something that we're looking at and trying to move forward with on the Energy Committee. Also, we're still looking, I know the electrician is looking at all the lights in the district. We replaced some of the hall lights and things with LEDs, and the payback on that is maybe 2 years, so we're trying to look at that more and more to relamp everything because the payback is so quick, the return on investment. So Dr. Cochran?
Yeah, when you asked me if I had any reports, I didn't have reports, but I had a couple other things that I'd like to put forward. Two of them are the donations, but before that, just some general comments, if I may.
Yep.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank Timberlane teachers, paraeducator staff, and administration for their time, effort, and dedication to our students and families during these challenging circumstances. At a time when quality education means so much to so many students, you are going above and beyond every day, and you're making a difference in the lives of both students and families. At the same time, you're modeling and monitoring safety procedures to try and keep everyone safe. I've already said how important people have been in doing this. Our staff have been great. Their commitment has been high, and I'm just super pleased when I get to walk down the halls in the buildings, when I actually get away from my desk and get in schools, which I try to do at least once or twice a week. You know, the quality of people, the energy level in the building of all levels of staff, and it's just pleasant to see. And it makes the hard work worthwhile. Second, I want to thank the booster clubs who wrapped up their fall seasons. They had a very short turnaround to try and get proposals adjusted to meet our safety criteria. And many did that within 24 to 48 hours and got it either into Mr. Fantasia or I. And for approval, a couple of cases, we had to get some clarity, and people had to tweak some other things. And I just want to thank the boosters and the organizers for their time, their effort, and working with us the way that you did to help make those events safe, and really appreciate your communication and the time and effort and all the things that you do. And the third is a little bit of an observational note, and hopefully I'll have more of these as time goes on. But if you're around here at the end of the day and you are walking by the middle school, you will see vehicles lined up the length of the building, out to the road, down to the road, to the exit, to the point where one day I had to go on the wrong side of the road to get around and out to go visit a school. So here's a thank you to all the parents and grandparents who are transporting their kids to the school in their personal vehicles. I do see the lineups. I know you're taking a significant chunk of time to do that, but it helps keep your children or grandchildren safer, and in doing that, that helps us all be safer. So thank you much. It may seem like a small thing, but it makes a big difference, and I'm sure the students appreciate it as well. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, thank you for bringing your phone over, but now it's locked, so I can't read it.
We do have two donations?
Oh, we do have two donations, but wait,
What-
let me, Brian, can you unlock this so I can read?
While he's
quick?
coming to unlock that, can I just, so everybody is aware on different committees, March of 2020, that policy about standing committees, it was adjusted. Only members of the committee may vote on committee matters, and at least 2 members of the committee from the school board and 2 members of the committee from the superintendent leadership team must be present to hold a vote at a meeting. So you need 2 people to hold a vote, but that shouldn't stop you from
Okay, so you can have a
meeting.
meeting, but you can't take any votes. Okay,
Correct.
Thanks. All right, Brian has brought over to me, this came in today. Our district clerk is resigning. Please accept this letter as formal notification. I'm resigning as the Timberlane Regional School District Clerk. I'm not going to read the rest of it. Basically, too much work, and this is from Caitlin Hilbert. So thank you for your work as the Timberlane Regional School District Clerk. Dr. Cochran, we're going to need to advertise for this position because we're going to need to get a clerk up and running before the deliberative session.
Deliberative will be,
Excuse
Whole
me?
nother ballgame.
I was going to say, I have
Public
no idea
hearing
how
and
we're
the
going to do
delib-
deliberative, but that's
Well,
another
yeah,
conversation
that's-
for another day.
but everybody else is going to be in the same boat, so I'm sure we'll figure it out.
It's a three-star notation, so that should be like a tomorrow morning, August 3rd.
Yes, that should be, and, you know, in the past,
As
it's
opposed to
been.
the other 27.
In past, it's been somebody from the district, so, but Caitlin did a great job, so we're sorry to lose her. All right, so now we have donations. Sorry, Jeff,
go right ahead.
go ahead.
If you want to, before donations, I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that you do have a summary in your package relating to cooperative copier purchasing. And I'm going to have them come in as, on a consulting basis. It's a very short fee for that. Just wanted to give the board a heads up on that. There's a copy of the proposed contract in there. You guys have a lot going on your agenda, but this is something that is very interesting. This company operates essentially as a bid agent, and bids our copiers with a lot of other copiers and a lot of other prints for a lot of other districts in the state, and can probably offer some significant cost savings. In fact, they guarantee that in their contract over what we're using now. So just wanted to bring it to your attention, no action needed, but it is a little bright spot. We're talking about cost savings, so.
Will we need to do this in another meeting? Is this?
No, the great thing about it, Sheila, is that they'll send out the bid, and then the bids come here to the board to be accepted.
Okay.
So you wouldn't need to take any action until then. So it's more just an informative
So
piece
they
of-
actually do the bidding for us?
That's right. They do
The
more than that.
process. Not the bidding, but the process, yeah.
Yep, yeah, the bidding process, and they'll bid directly to vendors where we bid to retailers. We request bids from retailers, they request from vendors, so just FYI, no action needed now, but if you have any questions, do let me know.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Cochran, we want to do these donations?
Yes, please. First, for Danville Elementary, requesting that we accept the received donation from Hannaford for the 2020 Hannaford Helps Schools program for $860. This money will be deposited in the student activity account to help fund school-wide programs for students.
I'll make that motion.
A second? Is there any discussion? All in favor? 8-0. Thank you very much, Hannaford, for your donation to Danville Elementary.
The second is from ExxonMobil. On behalf of ExxonMobil Corporation, I'm pleased to enclose a check in the amount of $2,500 provided through a grant by ExxonMobil Corporation to sponsor Trimlene Regional High School. And there's not a specific goal for it. But
Make a motion to accept the $2,500 from ExxonMobil as outlined.
And
Motion by Sean,
it's for the
second
high
by
school.
Kristen. Go ahead.
Specifically for the high school.
Yeah.
For the high school, yes. All in favor? 8-0. Thank you to Exxon for that generous donation. Okay, committee reports. Curriculum, do you have anything or not? No.
No, we didn't.
Policy?
I don't think policy met since we last met.
No. Safety?
Yes, we did meet.
I know you did, because I
Yes.
almost joined.
You-
I joined, but I
You
left.
came in and then you left. You could have stuck around. It was a good meeting.
Been in plenty of meetings.
We unfortunately haven't met in a year. I know, where'd Jeff go? Oh, there, he's over there. It was nice to kind of get everyone back together, I think, and talk about some of the things that we had left off in last year. Some things moved forward, some kind of fell off track, but I think they're back on track, moving in the right direction. However, that being said, everything in our buildings is very safe. Camera systems are up and running. Everyone's happy with them. Things are numbered. Key systems are working. Everything's just going in the right direction with all of that. All the schools reported that all the COVID protocols are going very well. Mask wearing, they said that's the concerns that they had at the beginning of the year about being able to try to keep them on, especially even the younger kids. It's actually working quite well, and they're not having any of the problems that they really anticipated. And they're just saying everyone's being very cooperative and very, very helpful through the whole process. So, good meeting, definitely have some things on the radar that we're going to work on and move forward. Again, we meet quarterly. Our next meeting, I think, is January 13th. Correct, Jeff? Yeah. I know there was concern with this board about trying to make them later in the day, but because of the panelists and who's in that group, it's very hard to do, and we kind of do it right after a principal meeting, so they sort of have their meeting and then come right into ours, so it makes it very conducive. So it is a daytime type meeting. I know Sheila's on that. And
Did you say January 13th?
Yes, January 13th.
Okay, I already need somebody to cover because I'm in Boston that day, or doctor's appointment.
And I was just going to say, Brian has offered that when you can't, that he will.
Sorry, Brian.
And thank you, Jen, for clarifying that one thing. I mean, that's helpful to us, I think, to know that. There's not much that we really necessarily vote on at those meetings, so, right, so, but, you know. So it was a great meeting. Looking forward to the next one. Good group of people as always, and lots of great ideas come out of those, so. And then the other thing I can just touch on is the Superintendent Search Committee, which Sandra and I are continuing to work on. Again, applications are coming in, the committee's being formed, and we'll continue to report to this when we have more, but right now, there's really nothing more to report than what we already reported 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Jeff? Yep. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yep.
Okay, I already reported on energy. Any other discussion before we move into a non-public? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to enter a non-public under 91A:3, paragraph 2, sections A and C.
So moved.
Second.
I think we need a roll call vote on this, Kat.
You do. Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mockmer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage.
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I don't anticipate that we'll come back to a public session other than to adjourn the meeting, so you can shut off